Roy 150. Animals top. Animals high. Roy 150.
That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense, yeah, okay.
All right, Sam, up there. Okay, you guys have 3 more minutes. Ooh. Sorry.
Well, I'm not definitely yet. I was going to go to the handlebars part. Que no lo tenés que estar hecho o que no funciona así.
Yeah, you have to pass a race and handle the race handlebars. Yes, sir. That's for which one?
For that one, what are you trying to send back? All of it? Then you can send it. Well, you have to send it to remember when you send in data. It has to be from so you can send animals is worry about. So what you need to do
No, I'm looking
Okay, how's everyone doing with that? You guys want another 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay. Okay.
So you're sending your
I'll come to.
So in your index log, you have to look for tests.
Because I want to see it.
Go back to forward slash.
It works.
What does it say? Did you open up? Did you put in?
Yeah. Oh, wait. Instead of not having this thing for
Go to index. In here, you have to look for animal. Wait, is someone else looking for animal type? Is another thing looking for animal type? No, in your server. Are you rendering out index somewhere else? Here, see here. So you're sending out two different types of objects. One is array, the other one is. So when you come here.
Oh,
you do that.
You would have to very basically, if this is array, you want to put that on the test.
Possible.
Yes, I believe so. So I'm going to double check that. Oh, no, actually, the else would go inside of the if, but the else doesn't close.
Okay, are you guys ready to review this together as a class? No? Yeah, let's just review it as a class. We'll get plenty more opportunities. So, everyone, laptops down. Take a breath. So, here's all we really had to do for this. We're going to require a bunch of stuff. We're going to require Express. We're going to instantiate Express. We're going to require handlebars. We're going to set the handlebars as the engine for the app, as the view engine. set view engine handlebars. Then we're just going to declare our data fixture here, our array of animals, just like this. And then we have one root for dog, which will give us just the dog. And then we're passing in, so we're telling it to use our dog template in views, dog.handlebars. And then we're telling it to use this data. Here, the first member of the animals array, which is the dog object. So we pass in the dog object to our dog.handlebars, and then all of these are just properties of the dog object, so we're able to print them out onto our page like this. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone see how that works? Okay, good. Okay, so the second thing is we're going to print out all the pets. So this is at the very core of what we do as developers. We're either going to print out one thing or we're going to print out a list of things. That's pretty much all every website really does, is it prints out either a list of records or it prints out one record. Most of the web apps you guys use, whether it's Gmail, whether it's Netflix, that's all they're really doing is printing out lists of things for you to look at or giving you a detailed view on one record. That's pretty much at the core of everything a website or a web application or a mobile application actually does. So what we're doing here with all pets, we're going to make an empty object called data, and then it has this property here called anims, short for animals. Then we're just going to loop over all the animals. We're going to declare an current animal being the animal that we're currently iterating on. Then if the animal is a pet, then we're going to push it to our anims array. So basically we're just filtering out all of the ones that are pets. I'll show you guys again how to use filter for this instead. So we could just do animals.filter. And then can anyone tell me what goes inside here? Yeah, we're going to have an arrow function. It takes one parameter, which is the current item we're iterating on. Arrow, and then it just returns item.pet. This is all it really needs to do is item.pet. And then we could just data.anims.push. So we could just put data.anims equals this. Make sense to everyone?
So that would take, replace the for loop?
Yeah, this would replace the for loop. It's just a shorter way of doing it, much shorter way of doing it, and more performant too.
Can you put it back?
Yeah, do you guys want me to Slack this out to you guys before? Yeah, no problem. Slack. Okay, so then we just do obviously the same thing for the animals that aren't pets. The same deal, we could replace this with the filter, and that's really all there is to it. In our handlebars, we have one thing, the index.handlebars. This lists all the animals, and we do this with the for loop in handlebars. So this is what a for loop looks like in handlebars, or what a loop looks like in handlebars. So it's the same as a for loop in JavaScript. It just loops over every one of the objects in the array. So we're passing in this anims array here, and you guys can see this here. This is why we construct this anims object, this data object with a property called anims, because of the way handlebars accesses the data that we pass in. We pass in an object to handlebars here. We're going to say that we're using our index.handlebars, and we're passing in data as the data for it to display. Then, so the data has a property of anims, so handlebars can access that here as anims. Does everyone see how that's working? Okay, good. So then we're just going to loop over anims, which is a list of all of the animals that either are a pet or aren't a pet, and we're going to print out their information, their animal type, whether or not they're a pet, and their fierceness.
Can you do a shorthand for when the pet is false? I'm curious to see what the difference is.
The shorthand for when pet is false?
If you go back to server.js, the shorthand version you showed us is when pet is true. But what do you do when pet is false?
It would just be this. Yeah.
Oh, so for a function, if it's just expression, you don't even need.
No, if it's an arrow, the arrow function returns automatically. Yeah. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Everybody understand how that's working? Yeah, sure. Index.handlebars. So this is how the for loop works. It ends. It has an end tag here, kind of similar to the way the closing HTML tags work. It has a slash to tell you that that's the end of your loop. So basically, we're going to make for everything, for every member item in the anims array, we're going to make a new list item, and we're going to print out each of these things: the animal type, the pet name, and the fierceness. So here we have our array of animals. They all have a name. They have a Boolean for whether or not they're a pet, and then they have their fierceness from 1 to 10. So we have all of these. This just loops over all of them and prints them out based on whether or not they're a pet. Everyone see how that's working? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so yeah, so let's look at the dog. So the dog one just prints out 1 instead of printing out a list of items. It just prints out 1 item. So as I say, this is at the core of pretty much every web application, every mobile application. Pretty much everything you guys will be working on, you'll either be displaying a list of database items or you'll be displaying a data view. A detailed view of one database item. Whether, as I say, if it's Netflix, it's showing you a big list of movies in a grid style layout. If it's Gmail, it's showing you a list of all of your emails, but pretty much every application is basically just showing you lists and then detailed views. So this is really at the core of what we do as web developers. Then, of course, we have our main.handlebars, which is just sort of like the skeleton for our HTML. All of the HTML in these 2 templates all goes inside of here in the body section. You guys all see how that's working? Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to it. Any questions on this?
Can you show the filter I use?
Yeah, I slacked it out. Okay, so we're going to move on. Now we're going to go back to talking about REST frameworks again. Does everyone remember REST when we talked about this in our API week? Somebody look up RESTful API interface on Google and tell me what you see.
I know, everybody's looking at Melvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody. That's good, Melvin. You have the trust of your peers. Everybody trusts you too.
I hope it's not misplaced. A RESTful API is an application program interface that uses HTTP requests to get, put, post, and delete data.
Okay, good. So remember we talked about an API being what? An application programming interface, which is pretty much everything that we work with as developers. Gives us an interface to something else. It's all a bunch of layers going all the way down to the 1s and 0s. So using JavaScript and Node.js gives us an interface to using the event-driven I/O of Node.js. Using JavaScript in the browser gives us an interface to the DOM, and the XML HTTP request object. So everything pretty much in computers is an API. It's an interface to something else. RESTful interface, though, is one particular kind of interface that uses a specific set of rules, basically based on HTTP and the HTTP specification. So it works with the way websites normally send and receive data. So you guys know 2 of the HTTP methods. They're what? Get and post. So there are 2 others, which are called put and delete, which we'll be learning about as well. They aren't as commonly used, but they're a part of the REST specification, which we're supposed to be learning about now. So put takes data and it puts it into a database. Delete deletes a row from a database. So some web applications are designed this way to be compliant with REST specifications. A lot of times you'll post a form and it will be sent over post, and then it will be sanitized and checked to make sure there are no security violations or SQL injection or anything like that. And then only then does it get added to the database. So a lot of times people will use post in their applications instead, but this is the way that REST APIs work. So we're supposed to be talking about this now. You guys are going to have a partners do to go over get, post, put, and delete and what they mean. Any questions on this, though, for me before we get started? No? Okay. Talk to your partners for 5 minutes about get, post, put, and delete. Yeah, get, post, put, delete. Those 4 things. So post means that you're posting a form, and it could do any number of things. Put is just specifically to add data to a database. So they're similar but not the same.
Put comes after post.
They don't really go in order. So you can either add data to your database. Say you have like a form or you're just like a CRM where you're adding customer information. So you could type in customer information, post the form, and then it goes to the application and post it to your database. Or put it is designed with something directly. So similar to typically people will just use post. Get and post are the 2 most common. Put and delete are less common. But we would use that basically if you have, say, an open API where people are allowed to add data from more Does that make sense to you guys? Sorry, it's a little bit. Let me see if there's a good resource I can slack out on this too.
What does W3 say?
Well, it depends on the way you want to architect your application. So it's pretty much your choice on the application architecture. If you want to make a RESTful interface so it will be standards compliant, then you would use put. A lot of times, though, people want more security around the things they're putting into their database, so that's why they use post, and then they have more rules for security that they run before doing the put into the database. Here, I'll Google for it and see if I can send you guys out something. When to use put versus post. Here you go, Jackie.
Wow. Idempotent.
So here, get is used as the information put change the state for publish to be an object file post create release. That explains the so it's, I guess, like when you post it
Yeah.
Let me send you this. This is really good.
Like I say, it depends on how you want to architect your applications. I would usually use post.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so our time is up with that. So now I'm going to be calling on a few of you individually to tell us some things about get, post, put, delete. So, Jackie, you've been reading about this stuff.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so what is the difference between get and post?
Gets your information and post it on the page.
Well, they both pass information to a server, right? So that's not entirely right. Post doesn't. Let's start with that. So what does get do, first of all?
It gets the information data.
No, so get and post are both ways of requesting information from the server, right, and getting a response and passing in parameters. The difference is that get parameters are URL encoded, right? We have the URL that starts with a question mark, and then there are pairs of parameter property value pairs encoded as between and signs and equal signs. You guys all remember how we did that in API week, where we would pass in parameters to the APIs using URL parameters. So post works pretty much the same way. It's still sending a request to the server and getting a response, but instead of having the parameters URL encoded, they're encoded in form encoding, right? Because post is designed to post a form to the server and then get a response. So instead of sending data URL encoded, you're posting a form. So you can't see the data that's being sent in the URL. That's the big difference between get and post. With get, data is encoded in the URL. With post, it's not. It's sent over post, so you don't see it in the URL. That's the big difference between get and post. Put is specifically for putting data into a database. You don't see it that much with web applications, but some people do implement it with RESTful interfaces just to be standards compliant. Yes, Dan.
Are put and patch interchangeable, or
are put and post interchangeable?
Patch.
Patch, I don't know much about patch. I think patch is more like an update, a direct update request. Let's look at a, that may be just, let's see. HTTP patch. Yeah, so that's a newer method. Yeah, only certain servers use patch. I can get back to you about that, Dan. That's a newer thing. For now, we're just learning about the 4, though. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Say this is a job interview, and I'm asking you guys a job interview question. Can I have a volunteer, somebody to answer a job interview question about HTTP methods? Guys, Sam, want to answer a job interview question? Or Mario? So say you're at a job interview and I ask you, well, when would you use a GET request and when would you use a POST request? Say you're designing the architecture for a web application. When would you know to use a POST request? When would you know to use a GET request?
Okay. I would use a GET request when I want to specify what the user is going to get back when they visit a certain route in our site. And I would use POST when we want to get information from the actual URL that they're providing or from a form that they're filling out.
Yeah, it's when usually POST is for when you're filling out a form. GET is pretty much for everything else. But with both of these, you're sending a request and you're getting a response. It basically just has to do with the way the parameters are encoded. So it makes more sense to use a POST request with a form, and it makes more sense to use a GET request when you want to request things over a URL.
I've seen that sometimes when you submit a form, like if you do form method post or something like that, it encodes the some of the content or some of the field names into the URL.
It shouldn't do that by default. Usually you have something else going on there, like you're doing an AJAX post with the form or something. Yeah, you can pass a form post as a GET, so it'll work that way. Sometimes people do funny things to post forms with JavaScript, which we've seen in some of the examples here. So that could be partly why. But when you just do a basic form post, it should encode all of the data as a form post, and then you don't see it in the URL. Okay, so we're going to keep moving with this stuff. Any questions on get, post, put, delete before we move on? Yes? Okay, go ahead, Sam.
So technically, you could, take form data and put it in your server using a GET request. It's just not optimized for that. You would be putting all of your form data within the URL, which would not be friendly for passwords and stuff, right?
Sorry, say that again?
So technically, you could use a GET request to take data and send it back to the server.
Yeah.
It would just all be in your URL.
Yeah, you absolutely can. It's just encoded in a different way. And that's the important takeaway here. Both get and post do the same thing. They both are requesting a response from the server and taking the response and displaying it as a web page. The only difference is how the data is encoded. So you can post a form over GET. You can encode information over GET. They both do the same things. They're just two different ways of doing the same thing.
GET has a limited amount of information that you can pass.
Yes, they both do, but it's not in the specification. It's in the browser constraints and the constraints of the server. So different browsers will have an upper limit on how much data you can pass in a put and in a post and in a GET request. And then different web servers as well will have an upper limit on how much you can set, which you can set in the server configurations. Typically, if you want to send more information, you can do it over a post. Posts are intended to pass more data, but you can pass a lot in a GET, especially if you're not using Internet Explorer. Most of the weird problems you run into running out of storage space happen with Internet Explorer. Any other questions? Yeah, Russ.
What's the relationship between REST and CRUD?
So REST is a standard. People came up with a way because a lot of people wanted to send data over web APIs. Some people, a working group basically came up with REST as a standardized way where everybody could send data in the same types of ways, which made it very easy for people to make their systems interoperable with each other. Create, read, update, delete is just basically the way a database works. Those are the fundamental things a database works. So REST is sort of designed around the fundamental ways that a database works, as well as the fundamental ways that HTTP works. So it's a way of making databases basically interoperable with each other over HTTP. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to what's next. We're going to get a chance to sort of play with REST here. To task saver. Okay, so we are going to Slack this out, and you're going to be working with partners to understand what it does, but let's just go over it as a class first. So what happened here? Oh, okay, so I need to have my SQL running for this one, looks like. So this one is one of the ones that uses SQL. We're back to using SQL too. So I'm just going to go ahead and start my SQL server. Okay. I go ahead, paste all this here. Now. Just need to update the password here. Okay, now let's see what this thing is supposed to do. When I go to the root, it's going to query all from tasks. So let's try that. Okay. Okay, and now we can see we have all of these things here. Now there's a form, so I can add one as well. Teach FS. Okay. Then I can see my to-do gets added, so that works. So let's see what our roots looks like. Okay, so you guys all see how this is working? All right, so just take 10 minutes and discuss. Yeah, just discuss. We Slack this out, right? Okay, yeah, just discuss the code and how it works. Actually, 15 minutes. Sorry.
It's named tabs. So when you do button cups on, you take it out. And then I guess we you know, I enjoyed this. Because that's what they said to do there.
That was fun. Well, I know it's just like I just
So the schema was is it'll create
Are these directions the same as going into the MySQL workbench and creating a database? And
yeah, but you guys are supposed to just be talking about the code.
But
So
we were just
run
deciding
this
what this
file.
meant.
Yeah, so yeah, it's the same as going to SQL Workbench and just pasting this code in and running it, or MAM. Either way is fine. For some reason, these instructions are telling you guys to do it from the command line, where the other ones weren't, but that's fine. SQL Workbench is fine. I don't know why it's telling you to do that.
Probably the same reason we learned Git bash.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't know. What? Yeah, isn't that funny? So this XKCD cartoon is about what's called a SQL MySQL injection attack, where you can paste into the field, instead of just the name, you paste in a name plus some SQL code like drop table students, and then that will delete the whole database. So this is a very common kind of attack, and it still actually works. And it would actually even probably work with the example I sent out.
I haven't made one since I ever switched.
Because you don't do that.
Yeah. It like opens up. It's super annoying and then loses something. Yeah. That's why I'm constantly because I'd rather hydrate
Please do it right.
No, I mean, what?
That is the file, right? Yeah. Yeah, this is the file.
Don't do that on the website. So like Google search is very long.
No, get rid of.
Oh, it's supposed to.
It's right there.
Well, I know you kind of,
Is your, oh, that's for the server? Is the server running? Okay, 33. Okay, go over my. You don't have a password for your.
Yeah.
You know why she would be getting she refused to receive this? She's running her hands.
You probably don't have the password.
Yeah, oh, yeah, you're right. So it doesn't throw like incorrect ones.
Right, yeah, that's what was happening to me just now when I demoed it. So I just changed the password to root. How's it going, guys? You want a few more minutes to keep discussing? Want to discuss as a class? What do you guys want to do? Keep discussing? Keep going? Okay. Let them keep going.
Incredible. I'm in the same.
Same error, really?
Because what's gonna happen is and this
She hasn't had the right.
So wait, last week.
I think it did that. That's what yeah, there we go.
And I'm just like,
Yeah, it'll be the illustration for you. Line two.
Okay, everyone, you're done discussing, go ahead and go on.
But once you do,
oh, that's what you did.
So is your hair pretty straight now? No, it is a, I don't know, you need to see it.
I have a mountain.
Have you tried doing like one of those? It's not like a full hair. I do now.
It's so Dominican, it's like.
Right now, so.
No problem. Okay, we're back at 8:15, everyone.
Okay, so then
And you just like the 2000 done by like a professional.
and
Here in Miami,
you can have this CD into that hole.
Yeah, we have it.
Back on your.
Well,
I don't think they never asked that.
To me, it's.
Such an ignorant question.
All right.
I really like
Does anybody want something from the vendor
like,
sheet?
how do I put this?
Oh,
If you were someone who was dying
Oh, that's why John didn't think I'm asking this question.
And you were learn to go in the flower. Yeah, I can get it but if you wear one of the backers, or you weren't, I can easily
Well, I think by the time I graduated, I looked better. But in high school, I was awkward.
For me, I actually have, not that, so like just undergrad circles, like so throughout high school, I didn't wear makeup, so you see like I have a nice complexion, but then I just have oh my god, scrumptious cheeks. Wait, seriously? Oh.
It don't make any sense.
Yeah. Maybe that's the car.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this wonderful hair. Considering I hadn't cut it in like 3 years.
Well, I just thought it's good, but if you lay out the question and stuff, adding something. Yeah, I think maybe this was
So you're like your sister? You're like your sister's sister?
Because I think it costs you
It's so much to do these. Oh, guys, I'm gonna delete all my photos on like ex-boyfriend photos that
go back to your
it's not like forced. Yeah. It's like really girly. Is that from the oh, this is gold. Wow. Cute. If you did that now, people would accuse you of being
I got it done in Jamaica by so how is that cultural?
I don't know, girl. If you were a celebrity and you were making money off an Instagram post, then
Yeah.
there's a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation.
When my hair gets longer,
I need someone to do that for me. It's hard to do that for me.
I can't do anything else, but I can do
Oh, this is when I met her.
my sister's prom.
You guys have your phones so quickly. I'm still in college.
Do you do that?
You know,
My other sister. Always wants to.
He's in this photo?
That's me, that's her.
This is last.
Oh, that Birdman. Okay, sorry, I was thinking of another Birdman. Okay.
Funny, our art school we see here because the other ones are all dressed up very serious. Victorian looking family photo.
Wait, art school as in the fine arts college?
No, hold up, fine arts high school.
Oh, you also went to a fine arts high school?
Okay, this survey,
So, oh, you've been in the downtown scene for a long time.
friend fire, right?
Oh, this is like one of my first.
David told me I
haircuts.
have a problem with my
No, it wasn't a diva cut, but it was like.
motor contract. Why? And told me there's something here, there's something here.
I can't find nice pictures.
I copy this thing.
When did you copy this from?
Oh,
See, no,
I
it's
come up on the video, the solution. Remember the friend finder had a solution. So I just.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know if that'll work, because I think this is outdated.
This was
Oh, yeah,
when I
right.
was our 18.
So I just do whatever.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, we weren't allowed to have a problem. We had a
Okay,
spring.
where is that video from?
Yeah, Facebook problem.
Oh, is it the video guy?
Yeah.
I like your hair.
The one that-
I know, all of my old photos are
So this is a video that he got us solution, you know.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not talking about why using this. The CBN, Mexico CBN.
So have you checked to see if they still exist and put that in the browser?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
The most worthy photo I have.
Okay, that does work.
Okay, let's say try that one. This one, right?
When I went to
oh yeah.
when I went to the store,
Sure,
the
this-
ordinary store,
Oh, it's chosen. Okay, okay.
design district, like I was, she was
Go back to your error so you can get it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Model enough.
And she's like, oh, I think you're just neutral. I'm like, honestly, it's because we.
Oh, okay, go.
Oh, I'm a mix of two.
Go ahead there. Let's see, you have, how many JavaScript files do you have? You only have, yeah, you are missing something.
You want something?
You're missing Bootstrap, the JavaScript file. No, the JavaScript file.
Oh, that's
Bootstrap.
Oh, I'm missing that one. Ah, I thought this is the one.
That's the CSS.
Ah, so how do I install it?
Oh, Bootstrap, go to Bootstrap.
I don't remember that. I keep forgetting.
Okay, it's all right. Download?
They have
No, no.
he sent me his,
So you want to get, I think it's the last one.
Sorry?
When did you start cutting it short? Like after college?
And where?
Anyway, it has to be before, or I'm sorry, after.
After where?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I think the type 3A. Yes.
So it has to be after your jQuery. So just add it at the last one.
Okay.
No, this is me, please, is her name.
Okay, try that.
You were looking at that.
Oh. And then one again.
It's actually not, except for this right here. Oh.
Oh, this one, right? So refresh or what?
Refresh it.
Then there's something again.
Okay, there's an error in your, and go to your server.
Change your password.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not running it?
Yeah. I'm running every time.
Her is a little more coarse than mine. And then this.
Okay, perfect.
Just try the password that you use. Try the password you always use.
Yeah, we will have it.
Okay,
something, right?
Yeah, try something.
It's Sublime.
So I
Yeah. Do that.
Right there. Password you use.
I can put anything,
Yeah.
right?
And then go back to
Question: how come you guys don't make 5? Make it 10. Make it so.
go back to get bash and then close that one.
Okay.
Close that one.
Nothing. Okay, open up the console.
I feel like you're so far away.
I'm gonna be dying soon. That's
What is it?
Oh, you have an error in your
Mark, that's up in the corner.
Yeah. How do you see it?
Oh, right here.
But she has to put it
Yeah,
here.
that's Bootstrap. That's
Yeah, I would say you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is working.
I'd like to
Everything's
harass
working. You
Jonathan
probably
and
now it's your
David.
JavaScript. You're not handling this.
Oh.
Somewhere in your JavaScript, I don't know where you have it.
Okay.
It's
The old one because I have an old one.
No, just your JavaScript. Where's your JavaScript?
What else do you have? Is it again? Oh. Did the whole folder.
Oh, that might be it. One's okay.
Yes.
No.
Alright. Routing is
No. Okay, so you don't have a JavaScript file.
Do I need a calculator? Yeah. You need a homework instruction, right? I don't see that you need it. You know this one. You know this one.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay.
Okay, so then.
Look at her, how she has her.
Am I right now?
Okay, so then your servers. Okay.
Everything
So,
is on the shelf.
Okay, so you're getting.
So I get in the. I mean the response.
Yes, we're.
It's amazing. Yeah.
She looks slightly older.
But you need a.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that
Oh,
empty lot right there that no longer exists.
I know. Now that other building.
Submitting to.
They started building out when I was there.
I mean, I still organize my.
Listen, are we going to Philly this Saturday?
I'm not sure. Are we? Because you said that you were.
We're doing something?
Yeah, because you
Yeah,
said.
you
well,
need
before
something
the plan was you would pick up the blanket food and you're all gonna go to my
handle
house
where
every night.
are you
But,
submitting all that
Ricky
information?
said- so you
Not
said that you were
specified.
out.
That's why I
Well, I mean, what I
try to
can
figure
do
out.
is.
I follow all the videos, right?
Well, remember, you should be doing this without the help of it.
I know.
No, just the family. No, but you have. She's talking about.
Yeah, you. I mean, this,
No, I remember what you.
what were the instructions? App data print.
Are you going to do movie night? Probably not. He doesn't even really want to do house or movie night.
Yeah, I only, no.
It's not the same. We gotta watch it on the app. Yeah, it's not the same.
No, I'm.
Look at what's in
She's
for.
on that night. Can we do that? I know.
Scary movies.
Okay, so then, yeah, you need your HTML has to post to API/. This whole thing needs to be a form.
Girl, you don't know. You don't know how that. I'm just like, oh, here you go. Maybe go to it because you don't require. Go to work. But I don't know.
I'm not with the at the thought of getting.
It has to be a form,
You know,
and
it's messed
then make it point to, no,
My
not
husband
actually,
doesn't test it.
My mom-
API/front.
He got rear-ended. He was just sitting at a stoplight, not doing anything, minding his own freaking business. You have
No,
to
right.
rear-end from
But
straight
that's
from
not,
the-
that has to be in your
the
HTML.
clinic to
Oh,
get
HTML?
tested.
So
He was doing it.
So we HTML.
Exactly.
And
So
he got,
so
actually, I think he quit before the.
write the whole thing.
No, just so, this is the,
Yeah, this is.
Okay. What should I write this?
it's like this, right? So you have your form,
I'm so having.
and all of everything from question 1 down to this button has to be inside of this form. All of that has to be inside of the form.
Okay, so how do I do that?
They don't have to worry about that.
Well, I think
Okay, attack here, the attack here.
should be its own state.
Oh, or before that, actually, wherever you start the first question. Go up, just the photo. Okay, right here. So after the about.
Miami is like normal freaking liberals and not.
Okay.
You don't have any Republican.
And then,
Well, that's just because of the big.
after the submit.
And the younger Cubans are like, they don't even know what that is, and they, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
From what I understand.
And then they go back to the first photo.
No.
The one doing the. Yeah. Okay, you need
Well, again, it's stereotyping.
Oh, it was actually like.
well, the need. No.
I would like to.
Oh, okay, exactly right.
And it doesn't do anything. And if they didn't have that, then they wouldn't be able to do that.
What?
Work like.
So I guess we're gonna do this one.
I'll try. Right? Let's just in case. Okay. Oh,
Somebody else came up with one.
Nobody else came out with
okay.
it?
We'll talk about it as a class.
That's why I started wondering where did you go?
Hey, where's the time?
I, at the very least,
You
appreciate
get exercise. You can correct your problem. And you don't have to worry.
Yeah, all of it. Great.
So what? I'm still mad.
Like, no.
We can actually just meet up and things together and just want to make this together. I really don't like driving. So it's like have one. That's so like it has to be Belvedere or Tito's. Belvedere for sure.
We don't like Tito's?
No, I like Belvedere and Tito's, but Belvedere is like. It's just in the way that it's distilled. The way that it's distilled. And it just goes on so smooth. That one doesn't have it just can't be served.
No.
Drinks. Oh, Apple J.
Okay, I mean, my mom and basically everyone when she
But also on the
Yes,
Okay.
actually.
Is it supposed to do that? Yeah. So you see here. Okay. Okay. No, otherwise, okay. Yeah. Okay, right. So every time I do it, you put it here. Is it the right way? I thought it's supposed to be
Even edible works for 3 days.
Just glad whatever.
Because every time somebody do something,
Well, my sister doesn't do that. Yeah, no, my sister doesn't do that.
Is anyone still out there? Is anyone still out there? No? Okay. Okay, thanks. Melvin, you're needed. Fabian's already doing it.
I think everyone's already back.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. How was your break, guys? Good? Good break? Very enlightening. Good. I like it. Okay, we're gonna talk about t-shirts, everyone.
T-shirts.
T-shirts. So we have a couple options for t-shirts, so I guess we're gonna vote. Yeah. Okay, so you guys ready to vote? You want it that color? Okay. Maybe we can compromise. So who wants pumping coach? Pumping Jose? Yeah. Oh, you guys haven't even seen it? Jeez. Pumping code. Yeah, this is Pedro's design. And we have actually several designs of it. Okay, so just to show you guys, this is one option Adrian was working on. Yeah. No. Martha's like, no. Okay, so here's what we have for pumping code. Any one of these. Madison, this looks like almost your patent teal, trademark Madison teal. Not quite, but we could do it in that color.
Oh, I just got one.
Oh, that's true. Orange or green. Yeah, because you know how I was always saying like coding is a workout for your brain.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I did it up.
Yeah, that's why you did it. Yeah, that's why you did it.
Even though it doesn't give you that something.
So we could do this, or we could do a manatee. Okay, so who wants pumping code? Show of hands. Who wants pumping code? Who wants manatee?
I'd like to see the picture of chisel.
Oh wait, do we have an example?
Chisel manatee, pumping code.
No, I think that's too much. A manatee of the computer.
How about a tattoo of a manatee?
Okay.
On the arm.
Wait,
That's
no, pumping code t-shirts with the tattoo of manatee tattooed on a computer.
Okay. I don't think we're ready to vote on this yet.
Wearing a t-shirt.
So, yeah, you like the pumping code? So we have limited time. We have only like 8 weeks left, I think, or even 7 weeks left. So we need to move on. Yeah. Yeah, 24 weeks. Yeah, 9. No, we're on week 14. We have 8 more weeks.
There's actually 25.
Oh, there's 25. Oh, okay.
I demand my money back from being
Yeah, good luck with that. That works out.
They will charge you more.
Okay.
Next week.
So we're gonna take another week, another 2 weeks. What do you guys think?
By the time we finally decide it's going to be graduation day, this will be our capping down basically.
No, we're gonna decide soon.
Okay, we're gonna decide
Define
soon.
soon.
Elliot, are you gonna help us? Since you're our one designer.
Yeah, I was thinking about having like if you like keep one side will be humanity and the other side might be like us. I'll put some nice textures.
Okay.
What about
What about a manatee lifting deadly?
Okay. Guys, get in the chat room. Who isn't a member of the committee yet? T-shirt committee. Anyone I forgot? Fabian or you and Chris? All right, everyone get on the chat room. Let's get on this t-shirt thing. Let's get it done. All right, you guys ready for what's next? Well, we're going to do it anyway. Sorry. Okay. We're going to make a wishes app similar to the to-do list type apps we've been doing before. This one is going to be for wishes. So I control C, CD, dot, slash, dot. Eight wishes. Okay, I'm just going to run the SQL code here, similar to what I've been telling you guys to do. Now, you guys can continue to do this in PHPMyAdmin or MySQL Workbench, or you may choose to use the MySQL command line tool. Whichever one you want, it's up to you. I just use the command line tool. It's quicker. Yes, it is. It's in the MAMP folder. Mario, get with him because he did it last night. He's asking how to use the command line MySQL with MAMP. Yeah. Yeah, the one we just did, you guys were just supposed to be talking about. It's already solved. No problem. Okay. Oh yeah, I have to change my SQL password. Just do that here. Root. Save. Okay, so we have a very similar thing, only this is for wishes. Other than that, very similar to the last thing you want. Like if I had one wish, I would wish for world peace.
You want hamburgers.
You want
hamburgers. French fries.
I want sleep. Can I wish for that?
Yes, you can wish for whatever you want and type it in the box here. I'll even do it for you, Melvin. Melvin, sleep. Okay. I'm just going to put Jackie Burger. Okay, everyone see how this works. It's saving it to the database. It's posting the form. It's doing fun stuff. Everyone see how this works? It's very similar to the last one you just dissected with your partners. So where does it save to? Database. MySQL database. Exactly the same as the last one we just did. It's connecting to the database. You have an overloaded route for your route. So when you get, it's going to get the list of everything. It's going to run this query to select star from wishes, basically gets everything out of the database, then passes it to the template to render it, to loop over all this stuff and render it. Very, very similar to the last exercise you guys just dissected. Very, very similar. See how this works? Then when you post to the root, you're going to post instead, and then you're going to run this query, which is an insert, which is going to insert the data that you just posted into a new row in the database. So it's almost exactly the same as the last one we did, only it's wishes instead of tasks. Other than that, exactly the same. Okay? No problem. And you guys have 15 minutes only.
What?
But it's pretty much copying the last thing you just did and then just change it to wishes.
But it's still like we have nothing in there. There's nothing in there. There's a reading.
Well, the thing says 15 minutes. I don't know. Sometimes I give you guys extra time.
Yeah, program.
Mob? Okay, you guys want a mob? Let's mob. Let's do it. Let's mob. Actually, somebody else bring up your laptop, though, and we're going to plug that one in.